Moved everything downstairs. Right. This is quieter. All right, tell me when you're ready.
In a minute, sorry.
It's okay.
Recording stopped.
I'll just pause it until you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready now.
Recording in progress.
So, this week saw the first case in the latest monkeypox outbreak identified in Wales. Public Health Wales said the case was being managed appropriately and no further details about the patient would be disclosed. However, around the world, when reporting on monkeypox, media outlets state that most of the cases are within gay and bisexual men and other men who have sex with men. So what has been learned from the late 90s in the reporting of the AIDS epidemic? At that time, they said everything should be guided by science, not stigma. But that doesn't seem to be happening today. Joining me now to discuss monkeypox and the psychological effects and impact post-COVID on many of us is our resident doctor, Dr. Chesney. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, Trevor, and great to be on the show. And, also to talk about, monkeypox and all the points that you raise is so important.
Brilliant. See, I want to first start by exploring monkeypox, and I want to really lay out the facts. I want you really to help us lay out the facts for people. While some groups may have a greater chance of exposure right now, infectious diseases do not care about cities or, international borders. They're not contained within social networks, and the risk of exposure is not limited to any one particular group. Or am I completely wrong about this?
You are correct, and you are correct 100%. And we must know that monkeypox is a virus. So viruses don't discriminate, and anyone can get the virus. So that's the first thing. It's not going to say that a certain group of population, for example, the gay or bisexual community, is going to get it. And this is where we're seeing a lot of stigma around monkeypox, and there's misinformation. So it's about educating people that it is a virus. It's a zoonosis. So it means it's a virus that was transmitted initially from monkeys or rodents. We usually find them in East Africa and Congo, where it's endemic. But now what we're starting to see, as you've said, the first case started on the 7th of May, where we started to see cases of monkeypox. And gradually it's increased, where we've got it in over 20 countries worldwide and over 92 new cases. So up to 100 cases, I think, probably, and the numbers are rising. But having said that, the way in which it spread, so it's not through sexual contact. And therefore, people saying and labeling it as they did with HIV and with AIDS, it was time that it was a gay disease and people that are gay and homosexual get it. It's not sexually transmitted. It's not a gay disease. So I can share more about that.
Can you tell us then, because I'm so glad you said that, how can you catch it? How is it transmitted?
Yes, so very good question. How is it transmitted? So it's not like COVID, where it's spread through large airborne areas. So that's one thing that's reassuring, that we are not going to reach the stage. And that's what WHO is telling us, World Health Organization. It's not going to be like the COVID pandemic. Secondly, it is spread through close contact. So if someone is intimate with someone, and if you're sharing the same bedding, towels, it has been, that it was found that in saunas I think it was in one of the countries, saunas, and in a certain festival where people picked up the disease. So that's one way with close contact. The second is if someone has lesions, so the skin lesions, so through the fluid of the skin lesion. So again, it's not through sexual contact, not through fluid, sexual intercourse fluid. So that's why it's not an STI, not related just to gay people. The third thing is it can spread through an infected person if they sneeze. So if you're in close contact with that person. So these are the ways in which it's spread. But they are urging people people, obviously, because of, if someone does find that they have symptoms, which I can explain a bit, that they do need to contact a sexual health clinic just to get tested and to avoid sexual intercourse because of the skin to skin contact. You understand? So it's not through sexual intercourse as such.
I'm so glad you cleared that up. So then, next question is, and you alluded to it, what are the symptoms to know if you've got it, if you've got monkeypox?
Yeah, so there are symptoms, but before I say that, so some of these symptoms you can see it in other illnesses like syphilis, chicken pox, herpes. So it can overlap these symptoms, and might even be like COVID type. So you'll get initially flu-like symptoms. So it could be a headache, fever, so temperature more than 38.5. Fatigue, extreme tiredness and exhaustion, and then the skin lesions and lymph node enlargement, lymphadenopathy. So the skin lesions we're looking at, you must have seen the pictures, Trevor. As soon as we heard about these cases, we started to see pictures of people that were infected. The first case, person who came from Nigeria. So it's specifically skin lesions. They can be pusful, they can be flat, raised, or like bigger lesions, as you've seen, and they can start on the face and then spread through the other parts of the body. So on your torso, it can spread to your soles of your feet and the skins on your hands and other areas of your body. But that's how it starts. So it's similar in a way like chicken pox, if you remember. And it is related to the smallpox. So monkeypox is related to smallpox, and that we can talk about when we come to the vaccine, why it's important.
And this is the thing. I was watching the news, and they talked about the eradication of smallpox, but what hasn't happened, obviously, if you're under 40,
Yeah.
and I'm over 40, so I remember having my jab. Our younger population haven't had that, and that's the same around the rest of the world, particularly in the West and in Africa as well, where they are still trying.
Yeah.
They've actually reduced it because of the financial burden to actually keep it going. So all these things, I don't know, have they compounded why it's now as a surge within the world right now? We're seeing the surge of monkeypox. Is it because of that, or again, am I completely off kilter here?
To be honest, the answer to your question, I mean, correct what you've said in terms of the monkeypox and the outbreak, and it was all managed in the 1980s. We know certain countries like West Africa, Congo, there are cases, and it's endemic in that country. Endemic meaning that you can get this type of illness in these countries, like malaria in certain African countries. So it's the same thing. So these are this monkeypox is endemic. But the answer to your question is, why are we seeing it now? We don't know. So what they're saying is that they are still doing investigations. There isn't enough evidence to find out why is it now that we are having cases, why is it spreading, and also why there's a stigma now that's developing around gay. And I just want to touch on that quickly, because I just want to say that there is stigma, and we need to destigmatize by educating people. It isn't a gay disease. A virus doesn't discriminate. It will just spread from person to person. But the reason why people are saying that it could be more in gay and bisexual, and it's a worry. And I want to tell you a few more things about that, because it's causing a worry and anxiety around the gay population, where one of the other, or some I was reading in the news, Stephen Hart, another presenter, is hearing from homosexual men, calling in, sending messages. They're really concerned and anxious that people are saying it's a gay disease, and that's a psychological impact.
This is why I wanted to get you on, because Felipe came back from Portugal last week and was telling me how it's been reported in Portugal. I've had friends talk to me about this, and particularly one friend said, "Trevor, you're on the radio, for God's sake, do something, get out the right messages." Yes. And that's why I wanted you on, because you're absolutely right. It's at the moment, it's just kind of boiling under the surface, but for a lot of people affected, have been, verbally abused and saying, "You're now bringing a new disease to us."
Yes, exactly.
This is wrong.
Exactly, and that's what I wanted to share. The psychological impact is huge. Even when I started reading about it, the way it's been portrayed in media is that it's related to a gay disease. And this is what happened with HIV and AIDS. But just coming back to this point, it's not sexually transmitted. Virus doesn't discriminate. So any population's going to get it. But what the point is being made is that they are seeing the first cases started with gay men where they picked it up. So there is a population of people where they have found that in the gay population, gay and bisexual, that there's an increased numbers in why they are getting it. So this is probably where it's stemming from. But it's not to say that they are the only, so giving this information is going to be incorrect in people thinking it's only a gay disease, because anyone can get it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's why I wanted. I think you've cleared that up.
Yeah. The second
Talking
thing, Trevor, sorry, just to say.
I wanted because of time, but go on,
Okay.
second point. Go
Just
for it.
to say that, yes, there are vulnerable groups. So people with HIV, immunocompromised, and HIV, pregnant women, children can get a severe form of the disease. It's usually self-limiting. Between 3 to 4 weeks, you will recover from it. If someone has the vaccine, as you said, there is a smallpox vaccine, which our country has already procured 20,000 vaccines. You know, it's called Vaccinia. Or there's two other names, Invanex and Giris. So these are the other vaccines available. So if people do have the vaccine, it can prevent it. But obviously treatment will be the symptomatic treatment, as we know. But in 1% of the population, it can be lethal. So 1 to 10%, it can be more severe. It can lead to death. So obviously this is then the concern. But as I said, it's nowhere near COVID and how we catch COVID. So, but World Health Organization has been on top of it in terms of educating.
We've got to move on. I'm sorry, but if anyone has any concerns, as always, NHS 111. I'll give out those details. Just quickly, COVID. It seems that people have forgot we're in a pandemic. That's just from my own observation. And everyone has a right, whether they want to wear a mask or not. And that's not where I'm coming from here. I'm just kind of incensed at the moment for something I witnessed on the bus. Someone blatantly coughing in someone's face, didn't cover their mouth. Now, on one level, prior to the pandemic, I'd have said they're just rude anyway, because you just don't do that.
Yeah.
But the fact that we are in one and the potential of spreading, come on, wake up. And it just really incensed me. Maybe I'm the only person. Maybe I'm wrong here. But I think there's a lot of people just think, there isn't one. We're not in a pandemic.
Yeah. No, the example you've given, we are still in a pandemic. We are still seeing cases and the numbers are still rising. But because of the vaccinations, I think people are not as concerned because people have been vaccinated. And even if they do get symptoms, a lot of people are saying it's going to be like you're catching a cold and flu and recovering from it. But then again, thinking about the advice we were given is if you do have any symptoms, you need to isolate yourself. And if you have any, obviously when you cough or sneeze, be mindful of the area in which you're doing it. And even if you have like any tissue, you need to throw it in the waste paper basket. So I think the fact that someone can cough in someone's face, I think, and knowing that we are still in a pandemic, I think that's something that is a bit of a concern. So to be honest, I'm still very careful. As you know, we're still very careful in terms of, where we go, wearing masks, hand sanitizing, maintaining distance. I guess, Trevor, I think on the one hand, people are, because of the coronaphobia and chronophobia, I think a lot of people have gone past that because we've been living with it for over 2 years. So, and our lives were impacted severely, so many lost their lives, lost loved ones. Then we've had to go through through being in lockdown, and then lots of other changes occurring in everyone's lives. So I think this is now living with COVID, and this is what we're going to have to get used to. But definitely, as you've pointed out, I think people still need to be cautious and careful and adhere to guidance. I think it's really important.
I want to just keep it on a little bit longer because I want to deal with the psychological effect that everyone is dealing with in terms of the cost of living crisis at the moment. Chancellors this week gifted over an additional 50 million. And when you break it down, for those most vulnerable, which is the third of the population and most vulnerable, they'll get more, probably in to the extent of over £1,000. Everyone else, including me, around about £400 as a grant. So now we don't have to pay it back. But it's not really scratching the surface, because it may make a little dent for some. Some are already in debt, and they're still going to have to make that decision. We talked about it before. Do you heat or do you eat? And I'm just seeing, and I don't know if you tell me if I'm wrong, I just feel, particularly in some of the schools that I see with parents, the anxiety, just the gauntness of people thinking, how am I going to feed my kids, let alone myself? And I don't know if this is getting better in the next year or two. I don't think it will do. So how can people start to deal with their own sense of self and wealth and well-being when they've got all these additional pressures? I just find it really, really sad when I've seen some of these parents this week who don't see it as hope.
Yes.
They see it as a short-term fix.
Yes, a lot of people have lost their jobs and livelihood, and it definitely impacts on the psychological and stress on the family, and obviously those that are breadwinners. So I think, in terms of coping with it, I think what people need to do is manage their anxieties and concerns around their finances. And I think a lot of times when people are so concerned, they're not actually tackling the issues or trying to deal with it. Yes, there is grants now available, so I think a person needs to find out more information about what else is available, what other support and help. Contact job centers if you're trying to look for a job, or maybe think about starting your own business. Online businesses are thriving, especially during the COVID pandemic, because people are not going as often to the shops. I'm sure you've seen that. Everything is online. So I think people need to be creative and also use whatever opportunities. Schools are offering, I know at my kids' schools, they are offering hot meals for kids at a disadvantage. And there's a lot of charity organizations that are offering and doing service in terms of, if you go to all the supermarkets, Trevor, you see lots of trolleys where they have a specific portion, like Morrison's, Asda, Sainsbury's, all these Tesco's, all have a place where you can actually donate food and goods, which I've done.
Yeah, for food.
Especially for,
I'm going to say, because we're running out of time, but it is about how you manage those anxieties.
Yes.
I'm going to post Citizens Advice Bureau. I always say to people, check out Citizens Advice Bureau. Yes. They can also talk to you about how the grants are going to be paid to people, and look at other things that you might be able to have as well. For now, though, Dr. Shez, I've got to say goodbye.
Okay. I think that was our cue. Yes, no, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's always great to chat to you, and definitely.
Hi.
I was just saying to have a look at the kitchen for the master.
Okay, come in. Sorry, carry on. Sorry, say that last bit again.
No, thank you, Trevor, for having me and being able to talk about, about monkeypox and the misinformation out there, and trying to reduce the stigma in the gay and bisexual community, and also talking about COVID and living with COVID and the psychological impact of both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trevor.
Recording stopped.
Brilliant. Sorry about that. The doorbell.